What if I told you that forcing yourself to talk to a stranger at a coffee shop is mathematically just as important for your lifespan as quitting a 15-cigarette-a-day smoking habit?
I mean, it sounds totally absurd when you frame it that way.
Right.
But the biology backing that up is actually undeniable. We tend to treat our bodies like these completely isolated systems, just ignoring how deeply our environment and our behavior dictate our cellular health.
We really do. I mean,
Yeah.
think about when you buy a new smartphone, the very first thing you do is check the specs.
Oh, absolutely.
You look at the battery life, the processor speed.
Yeah.
You want to know exactly how many applications it can run at once
Yeah.
before it starts lagging and heating up.
Yeah, you want the optimization.
Exactly. We obsess over optimizing our technology, but then when it comes to our own biology, we just kind of wing it.
We do?
We wait until the check engine light comes on, basically. We feel exhausted, we get sick, or we just accept that feeling sluggish is normal. So today's mission is unpacking a wildly fascinating source called the longevity blueprint for peak performance and health. And it completely dismantles that passive approach.
It really does. And in a landscape that's just flooded with dense, frankly overwhelming medical jargon, what makes this blueprint stand out and why it's so actionable is how it bridges that microscopic biology with everyday behavior.
Yeah.
We are looking at everything from regenerating damaged organs to the precise linguistic tricks you should use when you make a mistake at work.
So for you, the listener, whether you're prepping for a massive presentation or just, trying to get through the afternoon without a crash, we are laying out a highly structured roadmap today.
A roadmap you can actually use.
Right. Let's look at the raw materials first. If you want a high-performance machine, you don't put cheap gas in it. The blueprint goes straight to the gut with a concept called front-loading your fiber using the 4-3-2 method.
Yeah, the premise here is shifting the bulk of your daily fiber to breakfast and lunch, rather than having, like, a massive salad at dinner.
Okay, so break down that 4-3-2 framework for us.
It's actually really simple. It's 1/4 of your plate is whole grains, 1/3 of a can of beans, and 2 tablespoons of nuts or seeds.
Just right there in the morning or early afternoon.
Exactly. And there's also a brilliant pro tip in there from the research by microbiome dietitian Dr. Emily Leeming.
Oh yeah, the basil seeds.
Yes. If increasing your fiber usually leaves you feeling painfully bloated, which happens to a lot of people, use ground basil seeds instead of chia seeds.
Wait, really? Why basil over chia?
They ferment much more evenly in your digestive tract, so you don't get that same intense bloating.
Okay, let's unpack this timing aspect a bit.
Hmm.
Because if my gut microbiome is a factory, I want to deliver the raw materials right when the workers clock in for their morning shift, right? Not right before they go to sleep.
That's a great way to look at it.
But what are those workers actually doing with the fiber?
So fiber is essentially a non-digestible carbohydrate. It completely bypasses your small intestine.
It just skips it entirely.
Right. It skips the small intestine and lands directly in the fermentation vat of your large intestine. That's where your gut bacteria feast on it. They ferment that fiber into short-chain fatty acids, primarily butyrate and acetate.
Butyrate and acetate.
Think of these acids as biological battery chargers that also double as a fire extinguisher for cellular inflammation.
Oh, wow. So by feeding those workers early in the day, you're flooding your system with these battery chargers right when your metabolic demand is at its absolute highest.
Exactly. And you also trigger what metabolic researchers call the second meal effect.
What is that?
The butyrate and acetate stabilize your blood sugar to such a degree that it actively suppresses your appetite for the remainder of the day. And the systemic protection is just staggering.
Yeah, the numbers in the blueprint were crazy.
Yeah.
Adding just 7 extra grams of fiber daily significantly lowers your risk of type 2 diabetes and heart disease. And for every 10 grams you add, you cut your bowel cancer risk by 10%.
It's massive.
Wait, there is a case study in the blueprint about Dr. Karan Rajan, right? He's a gut surgeon who was diagnosed with early-stage fatty liver disease at 28.
Yeah, 28 years old.
And he dramatically increased his fiber diversity using beans and ground seeds and actually reversed the fat deposition in his liver. I mean, reversing early-stage organ disease just by eating beans sounds a bit too simple to be true. What is the actual mechanism there?
It comes right back to those short-chain fatty acids. When you change the bacterial composition of your gut through diverse fiber, the butyrate actually travels through the portal vein directly to the liver.
Okay, so it goes straight to the source.
Right. And it alters how the liver metabolizes fats. It shuts down the pathways that store triglycerides and upregulates the pathways that burn them.
That's incredible.
Over 2 years, Dr. Rajan physically cleared the fat and stiffness from his liver simply by changing the fuel he gave his cellular factory.
So if front-loading fiber is about fueling the cellular engine, what happens when that engine is so gunked up that it needs a complete factory reset?
Well, that requires turning the fuel off entirely.
Exactly. Which brings us to Dr. Walter Longo's 5-day fasting mimicking diet, or FMD, which the blueprint introduces. The idea is you do this 2 to 4 times a year. For 5 days, you eat a diet that is low protein, low sugar, high fat, and plant-based.
And the immediate question people always have is, why not just drink water for 5 days?
Honestly, that was my exact first thought. If I'm eating fat and plants for 5 days, my body is still digesting food. How does it think it's fasting?
Right, so the distinction here is biological trickery versus outright deprivation.
Okay, trickery. I like that.
If you attempt a prolonged water fast, your body enters a panic state. It triggers a permanent thrifty mode,
Yeah.
drastically halting your metabolism to conserve energy.
Because it thinks you're starving.
Exactly. It perceives a famine, so it stubbornly holds on to fat.
So a water fast can actively backfire if you're trying to optimize your metabolism.
Absolutely. The FMD, however, provides just enough calories to keep your metabolism humming, but it strictly restricts specific amino acids.
Oh.
Your body operates on these nutrient sensors. The most powerful one is called mTOR. When mTOR senses amino acids from protein, it tells your cells to grow and multiply.
Got it.
But when you deprive mTOR of those specific amino acids, it panics, but in a good way. It signals the body to stop building and start cleaning house.
Which is autophagy.
Yes, deep autophagy. Your body scavenges its own damaged senescent cells and burns visceral belly fat for energy while fiercely protecting your lean muscle.
And here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because it's not just the fasting, it's what happens when you start eating normally again on day 6.
The refeeding phase?
Yes. The blueprint notes that refeeding unleashes mobilized stem cells and embryonic Yamanaka factors. I know Yamanaka factors are a huge buzzword in longevity right now, but how are they actually reversing the age of a cell?
So Yamanaka factors are specialized proteins that essentially act as a cellular time machine.
A time machine.
Yeah, because over time, our cells accumulate epigenetic damage. Basically, they forget how to function correctly.
Like corrupted software.
Spot on. When the FMD triggers the release of these factors during the refeeding phase, they bind to the DNA of those damaged cells and wipe the epigenetic slate clean. They reprogram an old damaged cell to behave like a brand new youthful one.
That is wild. The blueprint cites a preclinical trial where researchers chemically damaged the kidneys of mice beyond the point of natural repair.
Yes.
And after administering the FMD, these embryonic genes activated and rebuilt the kidneys. They returned them, cell by cell, to their original healthy state.
And the craziest part is we're seeing these mechanisms translate to human clinical trials now.
Really?
Yeah, across nearly 50 studies, the FMD slashes visceral fat and reverses insulin resistance. Within 1 year, 60 to 70% of diabetic patients either reduce or completely eliminate their medication.
Wow.
And in trials for chronic kidney disease, patients actually saw their circulating kidney stem cells triple.
Okay, so we have rebuilt the foundation. The gut is fueled, the cellular garbage is cleared out, and tissues are regenerating. How do we take this pristine hardware and redline it safely for peak focus?
Now we're talking about performance.
Right. Which brings us to a protocol loved by precision medicine clinician Dr. Molly Maloof, the 2-to-1 L-Theanine to caffeine stack.
Oh, this is a phenomenal tool, especially for anyone wanting hyperfocus without the physiological cost of anxiety.
The application is pretty straightforward. If you consume 100 milligrams of caffeine, so about 1 cup of coffee, you pair it with 200 milligrams of an L-Theanine supplement within a 10-minute window.
Yep, the 2-to-1 ratio is key.
Because if you're listening to this at your desk right now, staring down your 3rd cup of coffee, you know exactly what caffeine overload feels like. You get the energy, but your heart rate elevates, your thoughts scatter, your hands might even shake.
And to understand why the stack is necessary, we have to look at what caffeine is actually doing in your brain.
It's not just giving us energy.
No, it doesn't give you energy at all. It blocks your adenosine receptors. Adenosine is a molecule that accumulates while you're awake, and it signals to your brain that you're fatigued.
Oh.
Caffeine plugs those receptors, basically blinding your brain to its own exhaustion. But simultaneously, it triggers a massive release of adrenaline and noradrenaline.
So it's the chemical equivalent of slamming on the gas pedal while your transmission is in neutral.
Exactly, just pure chaotic revving. Enter L-theanine.
Which is an amino acid naturally found in green tea leaves, right?
Yes, L-theanine acts as a neurological modulator. It crosses the blood-brain barrier and significantly increases your alpha brain waves.
Alpha waves are the good ones.
Right. They are the electrical patterns associated with a state of calm, relaxed alertness.
So you get that sharp, piercing wakefulness from the caffeine, blocking the adenosine, but the L-theanine physically prevents the adrenaline from manifesting as jittery anxiety.
Exactly. It creates a highly controlled flow state for about 60 to 90 minutes.
And monks have implicitly known this for thousands of years, haven't they?
They really have.
They consume matcha, which naturally has this exact ratio of high L-theanine to low caffeine to achieve monk mode, that intense mental focus paired with total nervous system calm.
And beyond just productivity, there is a massive longevity angle here, too.
How so?
If you constantly spike your adrenaline with unbuffered stimulants, you trap your nervous system in the cell danger response.
Which sounds bad.
It is. It's a chronic state of fight or flight that accelerates cellular aging and leads directly to adrenal burnout. The L-theanine stack prevents your body from interpreting focus as a survival threat.
Okay, so if the L-theanine stack is about smoothing out chemical energy, what about mechanical energy?
Right, getting the body moving.
The blueprint details the routine of functional neurology expert Dr. Stephanie Estema. Once a week, she performs 4 to 10 rounds of absolute maximum effort sprints. We are talking 10 to 20 seconds of grueling output on a bike or a hill.
Followed by 3 to 4 minutes of complete rest until her heart rate is back in a relaxed state.
Right. Norwegian 4x4 intervals. They are agonizing in the moment, but the biological payoff is unmatched.
Truly unmatched.
But here's where I need some clarification. I know the old fitness myth about lactic acid being toxic waste has been thoroughly debunked by now, but we still largely view it as just a harmless byproduct of muscle fatigue. You're saying it's actually an active signaling molecule for the brain.
That is the big paradigm shift. Lactate isn't just waste, it's an incredibly powerful communication molecule.
Okay.
When you push into that extreme 20-second intensity, your energy demand spikes exponentially. Your body floods the bloodstream with lactate.
To keep up with the demand.
Yes, and because the demand is so high that lactate travels up and physically crosses the blood-brain barrier.
Wow. And once it enters the brain, it acts as a metabolic alarm bell.
Yes, and that alarm triggers the release of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
Which is like Miracle-Gro for the brain.
Exactly like Miracle-Gro. It stimulates neurogenesis, the growth of entirely new neural networks and blood vessels.
See, that perfectly explains why Dr. Estema deliberately schedules these painful sprints right before demanding cognitive tasks, like writing her book.
She's biohacking her writing process.
Right. She is actively using that post-sprint surge of BDNF to force her brain into a state of heightened creativity and memory retention.
And the adaptation isn't just limited to your neurons either. High concentrations of lactate also upregulate AMPK and PGC1 alpha in your muscles.
Okay, let me guess. If MTR is the sensor that builds tissue, AMPK and PGC1 alpha must be the sensors that build energy capacity.
Spot on. They are the master regulators of your mitochondrial network.
Nice.
When the lactate activates them, they sense the extreme energy depletion and command your cells to undergo mitochondrial biogenesis.
So your body literally builds denser, more efficient cellular power plants.
Exactly, just to ensure you survive the next time you endure that level of stress.
Amazing. So these short, painful sprints clear brain fog and build elite, long-term protection against cognitive decline and cardiovascular disease.
It's all connected.
All right, so we've optimize the hardware and the energy output. Let's pivot to the software. How does the way we communicate, both internally to ourselves and externally to strangers, literally rewire our genetic expression?
This is where psychology and biology really intersect.
Because we all have an inner critic. If you're listening to this on your commute right now, think about how you talk to yourself when you miss your exit on the highway.
Oh, we spiral instantly.
We do. The blueprint highlights research from neuroscientist Dr. Ethan Kross and Yale psychologist Dr. Emma Seppele on a technique called distanced self-talk.
Yes, this is a great tool.
When you mess up, you consciously shift your internal monologue away from the first person. So you stop saying, "I am failing." Instead, you address yourself in the second or third person using your own name.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you're going to figure this out. Here's the plan.
And the neurological mechanism behind this is fascinating.
What's actually happening in the brain?
During a moment of acute stress, your prefrontal cortex, which is the logic and planning center of your brain, loses its regulatory power. You are effectively locked in a localized emotional threat response orchestrated by your amygdala.
It's like trying to debug a computer program while you are still running it. You can't fix the code from inside the error loop. You have to step outside the program to rewrite it.
That's a perfect analogy.
Using my own name forces me out of my emotional brain.
Because that linguistic shift acts as a cognitive wedge. Hearing your own name tricks your brain into an objective advice-giving mode.
Oh, interesting.
Dr. Sepley's research actually observed individuals typing hundreds of horrific, self-loathing insults in response to minor personal mistakes. I mean, things you would never dream of saying to another human being.
Oh, we are so brutal to ourselves.
We really are. But when they were prompted to advise a friend who made the exact same error, their tone instantly shifted to constructive, compassionate problem-solving.
Because advising a friend removes the localized threat. We have infinite patience for others. So distance self-talk hacks that system, forcing you to extend that same biological compassion to yourself.
Which is absolutely vital.
Right, because chronic self-criticism activates the sympathetic nervous system and just pumps your body full of inflammatory cortisol.
Exactly. Stepping outside of yourself linguistically is step one. But the blueprint then demands that we step outside of ourselves physically through the microinteractions protocol.
Oh, right, exposure therapy through microinteractions. This was championed by behavioral scientist Dr. Nick Epley and bioethicist Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel.
Yeah.
The assignment is deliberately initiating a brief, positive conversation with a stranger. So an Uber driver, a barista, maybe someone waiting in line next to you.
And to understand the intense resistance most people feel toward this, because a lot of people hate this idea, you have to look at our evolutionary biology.
We're terrified of strangers.
Right. Our survival used to depend on tribal cooperation, so our brains are wired to need social connection. However, we suffer from this cognitive bias where we are hyper-pessimistic about rejection.
We wrongly assume strangers just want to be left alone.
Yes, so we preemptively isolate ourselves to avoid the pain of a negative reaction.
Initiating a conversation acts as exposure therapy because it proves to your nervous system that human nature is actually overwhelmingly receptive.
Yeah, exactly.
The blueprint highlights this entrepreneur, Chia Jiang, who suffered from paralyzing social anxiety. He deliberately sought out 100 days of rejection by asking strangers for outlandish favors, fully expecting them to yell at him.
He was basically trying to numb himself to the worst-case scenario.
Exactly. But the worst-case scenario basically never happened. He went to a Krispy Kreme and asked the worker to invent an Olympic ring-shaped donut for him on the spot.
That's hilarious.
And instead of laughing at him, they actually accommodated him. Out of 100 bizarre requests, he experienced virtually no hostility. He permanently rewired his anxiety by proving his evolutionary fear of rejection was just an illusion.
And the biological stakes of this kind of connection really cannot be overstated.
How bad is the isolation physically?
It's severe. Social isolation changes the expression of 75 different genes linked to severe inflammation and poor immune response. Loneliness literally alters your DNA expression for the worse.
Which brings us all the way back to the Harvard Adult Development Study we opened with. 85 years of data proving that eradicating loneliness is the biological equivalent of quitting a 15-cigarette-a-day habit.
It's astounding.
For individuals over 50, robust social ties increase lifespan by 8 years and drop mortality by 24%.
It's a comprehensive, interconnected web.
It really is. We have covered massive ground today.
Yeah.
We went from front-loading fiber for short-chain fatty acids to mimicking fasting to unleash Yamanaka factors. We talked about balancing neurotransmitters with L-Theanine, flooding the brain with BDNF through lactate sprints, and finally, using distance self-talk and stranger interactions to silence inflammatory genes.
That's a lot of tools.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Peak performance isn't a magic pill. It's taking deliberate agency over your biological hardware and software. It's an interconnected web of habits that compound over time.
And when you look at the entirety of this blueprint, a fascinating pattern emerges that wasn't explicitly named in the text, but it is undeniably the core driver of everything we discussed.
What's that?
What if the ultimate secret to human longevity is actually the conscious design of friction?
Friction. So you're saying the goal isn't to make our biology run smoother, but to actively throw wrenches into the gears. That completely flips the high-performance machine analogy we started with on its head.
Just look at the protocols. The fasting mimicking diet is intentional temporary starvation.
Sure.
The 20-second lactate sprints are intentional extreme physical panic. Initiating conversations with strangers is intentional social discomfort.
I see what you mean.
Every single action requires stepping into a state that feels biologically threatening.
So our bodies and minds don't decay simply from the passage of time. They decay from an excess of modern comfort.
Exactly.
When we remove all the physical, metabolic, and social friction from our life, our cellular machinery basically assumes we don't need it anymore. It downregulates and goes to sleep.
But by intentionally introducing small, controlled doses of friction, we send a loud, undeniable signal to our biology. We are still in the fight. We need you to stay sharp, rebuild, and adapt.
Optimization requires stressing the system in deliberate ways. I love that. Well, we want to thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Our challenge to you, the listener, is simple. Take just one of these protocols and put it into action immediately. Ask yourself right now, where can you add a little bit of intentional friction to your life today?